Hello, my name is Grace Brennan. Let's go card 1 and 2. And this is my audience member. The Centers for Disease Control state that every single year, more than 3,500 children aged infants to 19 die in this nation due to gun violence. Unfortunately, we as Americans have become numb to this fact. Due to the increase in mass shootings in America that have led to thousands of preventable deaths, the United States should have stricter gun control laws. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment is often cited by gun control opponents as to why the government should not interfere with private citizens owning firearms. But back in 1790, when that was written, the military was not as strong. The militia needed to be armed in order to prevent tyrannical rule like that experienced by the colonists that were underneath the rule of King George III of England. But now we have the military, and we also have other safety nets in our laws that make tyrannical rule an improbability. In addition to that, firearms of those days were single-shot muskets, but now we have automatic and high-powered weapons ruled to be weapons of mass destruction. With this shift, wouldn't it make sense to reevaluate the Second Amendment and take another look at what would constitute common sense gun laws? Gun advocates often imply that gun control proponents are trying to get rid of all guns. That is simply untrue. Nobody is trying to interfere with a lawful citizen owning a firearm for the safety of their home or for hunting. What we want to talk about is common sense gun laws. In terms of homes and cars, laws are extremely strict and documentation is filed with local governments. These laws apply to purchase, transfer, and sales. If we regulate the sales of houses and cars so strictly, we should also regulate and enforce these rules onto firearms in this nation. So, if gun ownership isn't being threatened, what can we do in order to prevent this senseless violence? Well, we can form common sense gun laws. There is a large misconception in this nation that owning a gun means safety, but that is actually untrue. According to a 2017 study done by the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence, more than 60% of Americans believe having a gun in the home makes you safer. That statistic has doubled from what it was in 2000. Following this, a research study in 2017 ran by Pew University came out with information stating that 2/3 of gun owners cite safety as the reason for owning their firearm. Higher gun ownership actually means increased levels of gun violence. Alaska, whose ownership is over 61%, has higher rates of firearm-related suicides, gun homicides, accidental gun deaths, law enforcement shootings, and violent crimes compared to those in Delaware, where there is less than 5% gun ownership. In addition to that, if gun owners are following the law, having a gun in the home wouldn't actually be all that much help in protecting your home. If laws are followed, the weapon should be kept safely and securely in one location, while the ammunition is kept in another room. Would most people have time to go to 2 separate locations in order for their firearms to be useful? Probably not. Ownership laws need to be strengthened to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. Gun deaths should be viewed as a preventable major health crisis and should be addressed as such. We must reduce access to guns by youths and emotionally unstable people. Guns should be licensed and registered, and if an individual is able to gain access to a firearm that belongs to a family member, that family member should also be held responsible for improper storage of their weapon. Manufacturers should take accountability for the marketing and sales of their weapons. Background checks should be required. And individuals looking to purchase a weapon should be required to show proof of passing gun safety and training courses prior to purchase. In many states, many of these laws already exist, but they are not enforced and are not shared between states, which is vital to prevent situations like the ones that involved Gary Martin. Gary Martin was a man from Mississippi who in 1994 was charged with felony aggravated assault after beating his girlfriend and leaving her to die. He later moved to Illinois and purchased a firearm in the state. When law enforcement in Illinois found out about this, they sent him a letter stating that he must surrender his firearm, but he never did. Months later, he took his handgun to work and ended up shooting and killing 5 of his co-workers and further injuring another 5 law enforcement officers before he himself was shot and killed by the police. Suggestions like these are easily implementable. So why is there so much resistance to any form of compromise in this conversation? Imagine being a victim of a mass shooting yourself. Imagine going to a concert with your daughters and out of the blue, all of a sudden, pop sound and screams rise. This happened to Rosemary Melanson, who took herself and 2 daughters to the Route 91 concert that occurred on October 1st, 2017. Following the shooting, she said, "I could see myself looking down. I could see the 2 girls looking over me. They are screaming and yelling, bullets flying." Rosemary and her youngest daughter, Paige, would both be shot. Rosemary would suffer a chest wound. It would break 2 of her ribs, perforate her esophagus, majorly damage both her liver and spleen, and would puncture her stomach and both of her lungs. She was on life support for 2 months following her getting shot and would spend over a year in the hospital. She would be one of the last individuals from the shooting to be discharged from the hospital. Imagine being Nicole Hadley when in 2012 she heard that there was a shooting at her children's elementary school, Sandy Hook. She said, "Eventually, all the kids left with their parents, and there were several of us left walking around looking for our kids, but they weren't there. Then we were asked to go to the back room. I didn't realize at that point what that meant. I was in absolute denial." Sadly, Nicole did realize what that meant. Her 6-year-old son, Dylan Hockley, would never be coming home again. Imagine being any one of the parents of the more than 3,500 children killed by guns each year. That is almost 10 children killed every day in this nation by guns. Imagine. It is easy to understand why so many people think that their rights are being violated. However, Gun control can benefit this nation as a whole. Shouldn't our children be the priority? No one disputes the value of a good education. But how can they learn when their young lives are being threatened? It's time for people to fight for the safety of the children and pass common sense gun laws in order to prevent these senseless killings of our nation's most vulnerable. Imagine not needing to worry about sending your child to school. Imagine being able to go to a concert or a large venue without needing to plan an escape route. Imagine what a wonderful world it would be.
Need me again?
Yes.
I'm still here.